Greetings, fellow Whovians, and welcome to Timey Wimey Review. It's been a week since Doctor Who Flux came to an end, and there's still so much to talk about. In my previous spoiler talks reviews, thank you very much for watching, by the way, there is some bits that I missed out in my initial talk that I wanted to talk about here, and also just wanted to elaborate in more greater detail. So today I'm going to do an overall review of Doctor Who Flux, and also ask the question, is this being the best series in the Chris Chibnall era? So firstly, let's talk about our three main characters, and most notably, really, I should be talking about, which I haven't done in my spoiler talk reviews, is Dan Lewis. John Bishop has been a welcome addition to Doctor Who, and I really enjoyed his character. He reminded me, in a sense, of Jamie McCribbin, Fraser Hines, where he can just interact with so many different characters, and it's just in an entertaining way, not only just with Doctor and Yaz. And I felt that Dan was used sparingly in a good way, again with him and interacting with other sub characters such as like Jericho and Diane and Carvanista. It's just a breath of fresh air with him, and I like that they didn't have to overly rely on his comedic background. I thought that John Bishop held up on his own in just straight-laced acting, really. And I'm glad that we're going to get more of John Bishop in the three specials, hopefully, at the very least. As I mentioned in my season finale review, this has been Jodie Whittaker's best performance to date. So I'm not going to go into too much detail in here, but I loved that she was a bit more Doctor Who-ish in that sense. And yeah, I just felt that the shackles was released and just had that extra bit of energy and not overly under reserved. I don't know whether that's just due to the writing or the script or just Jodie's confidence in the role, or whether, in terms of just enjoyment altogether in filming. I don't know, but there was just a mark of improvement in Jodie's performance, and just to see more of the Doctor's character. I felt that more in Jodie's iteration in this series rather than the previous two. So hopefully we get more of that in the three specials that are coming up. And then there's Yaz, and nothing against Mandip Gill whatsoever. I felt that Yaz was given a bit more to do, but there's still more improvement to be made with this character. Just I know we've got a bit of backstory from the previous two series, but in terms of character development, there's just much more that can be added on for her, and I felt like there's just been so much left off the table. So when we got into Doctor Who Flux from the first chapter, you just felt that there's been more time with just the Yaz and the Doctor, and I do hope in the near future that Big Finish Audios picks up Mandip and Jodie to have these adventures and fill in the gaps, because I just feel that Big Finish Audio will do a fantastic job with these two characters and the stories and adventures that they can have. And yes, like I said, Yaz had more to do in terms of her police background, especially in Village of the Angels, and to a certain extent, Chapter 5 as well. But again, there was just so much left off the table. We needed more time with her. Instead of introducing loads more characters, I think we need to be a bit more grounded with her, especially with the snappiness against the Doctor, with the Doctor just not telling Yaz everything and shutting her out in certain areas. Because when we got to that finale and that moment at the end of chapter 6, that was kind of like the biggest highlight for Yaz. This is kind of like a very, I would say, quite an important part, because the Doctor was starting to open up to her a bit more, and Yaz was clearly enjoying that and having that extra level of friendship. And you know that there was a moment there where could they have kissed? I don't know. There's certainly a loving bond between the pair, and I wish that was just elaborated a bit more, or at least sort of some C's dropped a bit more heavier throughout the Flux episodes. But yeah, could this be elaborated on a bit more? Yes. Am I interested to see this happen? Yes, I am, really. Again, like I said in my spoiler talk review, I'm more into the more platonic relationships between the doctors and companions. But I feel that in the right hands, this is a dynamic that could be told really well. Let's talk about the sub characters from Doctor Who Flux, because there was a lot of them. But most of the performances and the characters was good. The performances were great, to be fair, from the actors and actresses. The highlight being Kevin McNally as Professor Jericho. Every time he was on screen, he was the show stealer. Really enjoyed his character, to the point where when he did die, I was very disappointed. Not because of this character being killed off, because we knew someone was going to be killed off in the show, but just the way it was handled. I thought it was very underwhelming. There could have been easily an extra 10 seconds for Yaz and Dan to be completely upset than what we saw. We saw just a shot of Yaz, and there should have been tears coming down her face, and we didn't get that. When you're emotionally invested in that character, you want to see other characters emotionally invested in that, and I just felt that was very underwhelming, considering Yaz and Dan spent so many years in 1901 to 1904 in their Indiana Jones style of exploring. So again, I hope Big Finish Audios picks that up, because I think that would be a great series to listen to. I'll quickly touch upon Vinda and Bell as well, because if you got Jericho there, they're sort of like the next ones along. And when they were first introduced, I wasn't overly invested. I just knew that Bell was after, looking for Vinda. It wasn't a big surprise to me. However, chapter 4 and 5 and up to 6, that's when I started to get more interested in the characters, but it's particularly Bell's moments in chapter 4. I don't know why, it just intrigued me more. And I don't know if you guys think this as well, but obviously Belle's pregnant. What if that's the Doctor? What if the Doctor ironically has met her biological mother and father without her realizing that? I might be just shooting way up in the stars here, but I could easily see that happening. Especially with the Doctor's already seen her adopted mother, Tecteun. So, answers on a postcard, please, or just comment below your theory between Vinda and Bell. As for the rest of the sub characters, well, they had a strong start, but then had a really weak finish. Kate Stewart was kind of one of those people, sadly, where she had a good introduction in chapter 5, but was just nowhere to be seen, or just not used at all, barely, for chapter 6, which was a huge disappointment, considering we had that next time moment where she's like the leader of the resistance, and we saw none of that. Again, this is where the downfall of Doctor Who Flux is. It was just, I felt, 2 episodes too short. That could have been elaborated on a lot more. So that didn't quite sit well for me. What was the point in kind of bringing her back if we're not really going to do anything with her in chapter 6? But it was nice for Kate to be back. But I think the characters that suffered this the most was the villains, like Swarm, Azure, and the Grand Serpent. Most notably, they all had great introductions, and then just got absolutely underused, or just going on to irrelevancy towards the end of the series. I know they had like a bigger story to tell in the series finale, and I know sort of offshoots of that will probably take place in the specials, or at least I hope so. But I mean, Swarm and Azure really kind of got definitely the bad out of the sort of wasted bad guys. It was just too many villains, I think, in Doctor Who Flux. And yeah, Swarm and Azure were the worst out of the lot. After all the time that they had and the characters development and how they played those characters. Again, time is the bigger villain of the piece, but you know, it was kind of like we've got that character just to get to that end point here, but you still have to use them and use them well, and that sadly just didn't quite work out. Same with the Grand Serpent, had this great sort of build up to him, especially in chapter 5 with him infiltrating units all those years. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really clever thing to do. um Completely forgot or didn't realize that the Brigadier was in this cameo scene when I first watched it. It was I just didn't uh notice it. I don't know how. So I just imagine like the Brigadier having to sort of chat to him and sort of like, is this person on the level? And thankfully Kate sussed him out. So I really enjoyed that, but then the end game for Grand Serpent, Great Serpent, was just non-existent apart from just sort of henchman torturer to the Doctor, which was a good scene, by the way, but just didn't really do anything apart from the plot point for Vinda to get his revenge and send him into exile, which was fine. And again, I hope we see the return of Grand Serpent. But yeah, the villains kind of got a lot of wasted potential. However, the top baddies in Doctor Who Flux were the Sontarans, and fair play to Chris Chibnall. I thought he wrote them really well. I liked the slight redesign look of the Sontarans, very much reminiscent from the first time we saw the Sontarans in the 70s in the Time Warrior. And again, they are badasses. I really like that they were just kind of put on that pedestal on level footing with the Daleks and the Cybermen. Really enjoyed that they just kind of got their act together and really sort of nearly got away with their grand master scheme of wiping out the dominant aliens, which were the Daleks and Cybermen. The weakest were the Cybermen. No surprise there, really. They really need to sort of get the Cybermen back up and running. We nearly had that in the previous series, but here they were again not the main focus of the story. So I'm not going to sort of criticize too much on that, but I would like the Cybermen to get back to their sort of scariness and dominance. But second top was the Weeping Angels. Really enjoyed their involvement in Doctor Who Flux, especially in Village of the Angels. I thought that was the best that they've been used in quite some time, since Blink, really, to be fair. So yeah, really enjoyed their involvement. Got some great scares and some great tension from the Weeping Angels. The one thing I have to say during the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who is that the production values have been to a very high standard, and for the most part, it was the same here. The one thing that I think everyone can easily agree on was the CGI Daleks in Chapter 3. They weren't the best. In fact, they were pretty poor. When I was re-watching some of the, re-watching Doctor Who Flux, I didn't notice this in the first go, but when I looked at it again, especially that clip of the CGI Daleks, the neck moves, not just the dome, but the neck, and that's just terrible. The Daleks don't move like that. I thought it looked really odd at first, but then when I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And just the whole lighting of it just looked very flat, and just even the shape was wrong. It was just, this must have been a very re-rush job. I don't know if they did like a reshoot to include that scene with Bell, and they had to sort of quickly add in the Daleks into that scene. I don't know, but it just didn't look good. But barring that, the rest of the production values were top notch. Can't fault it, and especially with it being filmed during the pandemic. just the logistics alone of just filming in the pandemic is just mind-boggling. But to obviously with the restrictions of them traveling, they couldn't go to obviously different countries and film some of these scenes, especially with Dan, Yaz, and Jericho going to different places on Earth and convincingly being shown on TV. I thought it was really, really good, especially with all these restrictions. Quickly want to mention the cliffhangers throughout Doctor Who Flux because the cliffhangers I've really enjoyed, and this is the one thing I do miss quite a lot in modern Doctor Who are the cliffhangers when it's just one and done episodes. And like I said, the cliffhangers have been great. The execution of these cliffhangers have been a little bit hit and miss in the sort of how does the Doctor and the gang get out of this one type of moment. The weakest cliffhanger had to be Chapter 5, sadly, with Swarm reaching over to touch the Doctor and wipe her off the face of the earth, only for the Doctor to just basically go, bye. It wasn't a very well executed storyline. Sorry, cliffhanger. I think what I would have done for that cliffhanger would have been just open up the fob watch. Just do that, and then just leave it for next week of like, oh my god, is the Doctor going to get her memories back, or will it, that cliffhanger lead to what we saw in the season finale? So story wise. And I know this is going to divide the room because I know there's been many Whovians that have enjoyed this series and many Whovians who have absolutely tuned out of this series. For me, though, this has just reminded me of 1984's version of June. It's a mess, but an enjoyable mess. I have enjoyed it. I can't deny that I haven't enjoyed it for the most part. Yes, it's got lots of flaws, but even through that, I have enjoyed this series as a whole. Arguably, there has been a lot of wasted potential in Doctor Who Flux, especially with the sub characters that I mentioned earlier, and including scenes like with Diane. We had this great moment with her when she worked out how Passenger works and can absorb the antimatter, and I thought she was going to turn into someone else. I thought it was going to be this mystery person, but no, it just turned into playing Diane, and who didn't really want to go out with Dan, which was understandable given what she'd gone through. But again, that's one of the sort of examples of wasted potential. Same with Kate Stewart. We could have had this leading army of the resistance, with Grand Serpent looking to find her. That could have been a great chapter of its own. Then we could have had even more sort of cameo appearances from Unit, potentially like Martha Jones or Osgood, or even Luke from Sarah Jane Adventures. Instead, we just get this random person who spilled the beans, and we don't even know who he is. No idea. I think that could have been, um, not to be gruesome about it, that could have been Luke. How about that for a sort of cruel nuclear heat bad guy moment for the Grand Serpent? That would have been amazing. But alas, we didn't get that. I think the problem really is because it's just 6 episodes long. I think this series could have helped with it being 8 episodes long, and I would have used the chapter 7 for pretty much a whole episode between the Doctor and Tectayun. We had some really good moments with Jodie Whittaker in this series. Can't fault that, but we could have had some great moments. In fact, if anything, we could have had some standout Jodie Whittaker moments, which, personal opinion only, I haven't quite had just yet with Jodie Whittaker, and I hope we do in these 3 specials because she absolutely deserves it, and I just hope that the writing gives her those moments. But again, we could have had that between her and Tectayun a lot more than what we got on screen. The other extra episode I would have used was to give Yaz more sort of like screen time and more sort of character developments. we had the scene where she is watching the holographic recording that the Doctor has done, and you could have easily done some flashbacks, maybe with the Cybermen, where Doctor and Yaz are in a tight spot and the Cybermen are swarming over them. And not to give that whole sort of "I'm sorry, I've shut you out" type of moment that we did get in the Chapter 6 finale, but maybe along those lines of, "You are my best friend," or even Yaz just challenging the Doctor that a little bit more of, "Why are you shutting me out? Why are you doing this?" Just to have that moment would have been, just the icing on the cake, because, we are, whether you want to see this happen or not, we can't deny that we're all interested to see how this plays out. And just to have those extra seeds in there before the moment that we did get in the season 6 chapter between Yaz and the Doctor in the TARDIS would have been the icing on the cake for me. Do I think this has been the best series so far under Chris Chibnall? I'm going to have to say yes. By default, to the most part. Again, it's the writing has been good for the most part in Doctor Who Flux, far better than Series 1 and Series 2. But again, there is so much more room for improvement. And I do hope that we get that in the final 3 specials. I am quite satisfied that we don't get all the answers explained in Doctor Who Flux, but there is some that should have been explained a bit more. Most notably, what happened to the universe? Is it being wiped out? Is it, has the Flux absolutely ravaged the rest of the universe? And and definitely with the whole Doctor sort of watching the Sontarans wipe out the Cybermen and Daleks. I don't know. I'm a bit on fence on this one. I don't think it was. I saw some tweets about the Tom Baker scene, the Fourth Doctor scene in Genesis of the Daleks with the 2 wires. Am I doing right by wiping out the Daleks? I don't think it's a direct comparison to what actually happened in Doctor Who Flux. I think the Sontarans would have got to that conclusion already. He didn't need the Doctor to step in and say it's a trap. You're all gonna die. Because everything has its time. But and out of plot convenience, I suppose, we know the Daleks are going to come back. We know the Cybermen are going to come back. They always find a way to return. But yeah, I would have liked to have been explained a bit better that that has the universe been wiped out? Has everything gone back to normal? Because we kind of just jumped to a scene where everything is kind of all right on Earth. Diane's gone back to exhibition in Liverpool, and Dan's there. It just didn't quite sort of explain everything away that needed to be explained. But having said that, I am looking forward to the final 3 specials. I want to see this out to the end. I'm not one of those that is like, oh, let's just, skip this and go into the new era of Doctor Who. I want to see how this all plays out. And I really do hope for Jodie and for Chris Chibnall that we do get a great swan song. Again, I'm a little bit on the fence with Chibnall. It's not been my favourite era of Doctor Who. It's not been the best writing in Doctor Who, but I really hope that he pulls something out of the bag, like he kind of did with the season 6 finale. Sorry, chapter 6 finale of Doctor Who Flux, with the fob watch. How they got that part of the story wrapped up. I kind of hope to see this here, and again, sort of play out the rest of the loose threads from Doctor Who Flux. I don't see most of that being touched upon on either the Daleks. I think that's just going to be a standalone story. So to wrap everything up from the Chris Chibnall era in potentially 2 chapters or 2 episodes, oh, that's going to be a tall order. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Doctor Who Flux as an overall series. Did you love this series? Did you hate this series? What has been your favourite moments? What has been your least favourite moments? Let me know in those comments. Let's have a good conversation about this series of Doctor Who. Next time on Timey Wimey Review, my festive season continues with the 11th Doctor story, The Doctor, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Until then, thank you very much for watching this video and, of course, watching my spoiler talk reviews throughout Doctor Who Flux. I've really enjoyed reading your comments. I love the likes and the subscriptions. I very much appreciate all that you've done for this channel so far. But if you can, please like the video, share the video and subscribe to the channel. But as the good doctor once said, tell me everything.